Hi, so today's video is for you guys who've noticed you've got some grey hair and you want to do something about it but you're not really sure what. So a lot of guys, they just allow their hair to go grey. If you look at someone like George Clooney, he looks very handsome and distinguished with grey hair. But on the other hand, maybe you feel you're not ready to go grey yet. Maybe you feel you're too young and you want to do something about it. I worked as a hairdresser and a colourist for over 10 years. A lot of guys did come to me. They wanted to do something and use a colour, but they weren't really sure. And when you walk into a store and if you want to buy a hair colour, the problem is most of them are marketed at women, so guys really have no idea. So I'm making this video to explain what kind of different colours are out there and what they do, the different effects you can get from hair colour, and how to choose the right colour for yourself. So to make it easy, there's only 3 different types of hair colour. Okay, you've got a temporary colour, which is basically like a shampoo. It's one bottle, you wash it in and it will wash out in 1 or 2 washes. So this will not cover grey, it will just add a tone like violet or I don't know, red or purple, whatever. The next type of colour is called semi-permanent. Now this has molecules which coat the outside of the hair, but it doesn't penetrate the hair, so it will wash out of your hair in 6 to 10 washes. If your hair is really damaged and dry, it may take longer to wash out, but it's not permanent. Okay, so semi-permanent colours will not cover grey hair, but they may disguise it. So if you have just a few grey hairs and use a semi-permanent, it could be that that disguises it perfectly. But if your hair is completely grey and then you put a semi-permanent colour on it, it will not disguise it. You'll still clearly be able to see that your hair is greying. But the good thing about semi-permanent colours is that they are a good place to start. If you've never experimented with hair colour before, then a semi-permanent colour is a great place to start. If it goes wrong, you know, wash your hair 5 times and it's gone. Yeah, it's not permanent. If you apply a semi-permanent colour to dry hair, it will last longer. And if you, like I say, if you have got damaged hair, or if you use like a black colour and you've got naturally blonde hair, it may even be permanent if your hair's damaged. So follow the instructions and apply it to damp hair. The final type of hair colour is permanent hair colour. Now with this, once this is applied and left to develop, you can't change your mind. It's going to be permanent. The only way you can reverse it is to go to a hair salon and do a colour correction, and even then you can't guarantee you can go back to your natural colour. So a permanent colour is, once you use that, you're going to get a regrowth, like I say. So you're going to have your natural colour or the grey colour coming through. So every month you've got to do the roots, otherwise it kind of looks bad. Whether you're male or female, when people get a regrowth, it kind of looks like they don't take care of themselves. It makes them look a bit lazy. So if you're not ready to go down the route of definitely colouring your hair every month, maybe you don't need to go for permanent. Now the other type of colour that I want to mention here is really mismarketing. So when you go to the store, you may see a colour like this, which it says it's a semi-permanent colour which will last up to 28 shampoos and blends away grey. Now if it lasts 28 shampoos, then it's not really semi-permanent, even though it has this label semi-permanent. Semi-permanents, remember, only last for a maximum 10 washes. So if it says 28 washes, that means A, you're going to get a regrowth, and B, it's permanent. So the way to tell whether this is semi-permanent or permanent, open up the box. If you've got 1 bottle, it means it's semi-permanent and you just apply it to damp hair. If it's got 2 bottles, like this one, although this says it's a semi-permanent, when you look inside, you've got 2 bottles. One is the tint and one is the developer. Okay, so when you mix these and put it on your hair, this is the only way to get rid of this is to wait for it to grow out. So what they do is they label this as a semi-permanent colour that will last 28 shampoos. What they do, the peroxide in this product is less strong than it would be in a permanent hair colour. So when you mix these together, it's going to be permanent, but it's a weaker solution of peroxide. That's the only difference between this and permanent colour. So like I say, if you see one of these colours and you're not sure whether it's permanent or semi-permanent, open the box and see how many bottles are inside. If you've got a developer and a tint and you have to mix them together, that's not going to wash out. Okay, that's going to be permanent. So when you go to the store, if you're going to buy your own hair colour, then it's quite confusing. You know, you don't know what to choose. As we get older, our hair, obviously it goes grey, but our skin tone changes as well. So when you're in your 20s, maybe you had naturally jet black hair and it looked great. When you're 45, if you go to the chemist and you buy jet black colour, it's not going to look like it did when you were in your 20s, because your skin tone will have lightened as well as the grey hairs appearing. So you always want to go a little bit lighter than your natural colour that you think you had when you were young. Okay, so if you had black hair, then choose a brown colour or a dark brown maybe. And so when you go to the store and you look at these on the shelf, how do you know which one to go for? Well, you can look at the top of the boxes and they generally have a guide, but if you want to be more precise, look at the numbers. So for example, this is 5.4 rich chestnut and this is 6.0 light brown. So what does it mean? There's basically a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 would be black and 10 would be light blonde, okay? So 5 would be in the middle and 6 is also somewhere in the middle. 6 is light brown and 5 would be like a mid-brown colour. So the first number, for example 5, is the shade, so it's the base colour, yeah? So for example that is going to be a mid-brown of 5. And then it's got 0.4, so the secondary number is the tone. So as well as having like a mid-brown colour, then you can add a tone to it. So you can have brown with like a reddish tone, or you can have brown with a violet tone, or brown with a copper tone. For example, this is rich chestnut. What I advise to guys who are buying hair colour is to go for something which is neutral. So 6.0 is light brown. Yeah, it doesn't say 6.1 or 6.2, it's 6.0. That means it's just the brown without any other tones added to it. This will look more natural. Unless you're going for a specific effect and you want to have a tone, which is great, you can make a statement. If you went for, say you went for a brown colour with a red tone to it, and you do it and you look in your bathroom mirror and you think, yeah, this looks great. The next day you go out into the sunshine, and when the sun shines on your hair, it will be clear from 10 miles away that you've coloured your hair. It won't look natural. So if you want to go for a natural look, then go for something which is 0.0, yeah, rather than something with a tone. And the other thing you always need to do if you're choosing a permanent colour is to do a strand test. So what this means is that you can cut like a little bit of your hair and then apply the tint and then see what colour it turns out. If you're happy with it, you can go ahead with it. You may also need to do a sensitivity test. So generally you'll see on the side of the box, conduct a skin allergy test 48 hours before each time you colour. So the reason for that is that if you have an allergic reaction, then you know you could be left with serious complications. So generally what you need to do is you get the colour, you paint it on the inside of your arm, cover it with a plaster for 24 hours. If nothing happens, and then you can go ahead and colour your hair. If you get a reaction, or if your arm swells up, or if it goes red, it means you should stay away from permanent colours because you're going to be allergic to them. When you apply colours, like I say, if it's a permanent colour, you'd apply it to your head and that'd be a block colour, yeah? So like I say, you get the regrowth that comes through and all your hair is coloured. Now, if you want to avoid that strong regrowth coming through, there's some things you can do. So what you can do is have highlights, but rather than adding blonde, which is normally what people do with highlights, you'd add your natural colour. So for example, when you were young, you may have had brown hair, and now your hair is 50% grey. So what you can do is go to a salon and ask to have your natural colour, that brown colour, added to your hair through streaks, through highlights. So what they would do is weave out sections of your hair, paint on the brown colour, and keep that separated from the grey hair. So at the end, after you wash your hair, you're going to have half of your hair is going to still be the grey colour, but half of it is going to be your natural colour that you used to have, which is going to be kind of mixed into the grey. So it looks like your hair is not as grey, but the good thing is that the regrowth, when it comes through, is not going to be like a solid line because you've only got highlights of colour as opposed to just painting on a solid colour. So that's one way of kind of having a more natural look. What some guys do is they would they'd separate, because where your natural colour will show is around your hairline, around here, and wherever you have your parting. So if you colour your hair, but before you colour your hair, if you take this section here, for example, at the front, yeah, and then you clip that away from the rest, and you put the colour everywhere else apart from here and apart from here, yeah, and say you pick a bit at the front here as well, and you colour everything else. When the colour's done, you just brush your hair back, and the bits that you haven't coloured, which will be grey, will lay over the other hair which has been coloured. So as your hair grows and the grey starts to grow through, it's not as noticeable because this area at the front is going to be the grey anyway. So that's what a lot of guys do. With that, I would say you don't want to go too dark, because then you're going to have this contrast between the grey and the colour that you've coloured your hair. So if it's too dark and it's too much of a contrast, it's very obvious what you've done. So the last point I'll just add is that if you've got damaged hair, and that could be, I don't know, through hair colour or through sun damage, or it could be dry for whatever reason, hair colours sometimes don't behave in the same way. So if your hair's damaged, it means it's porous, it's like a sponge. So you could put on a colour which is meant to be light brown, and it will actually come out much darker than you think. It's not as predictable. So if you have any kind of damage on your hair, it's best to go to a salon and they can do that for you. With highlights or partial colouring, again, it's best to go to a salon because it's very difficult to highlight your own hair. If you want to go ahead and try colouring your hair, start off with a semi-permanent, and then when you're more confident you can use a permanent colour. At the end of the day, you can go to a hairdresser. There's no need to feel embarrassed. A lot of guys do get their hair coloured, so you know, if you go to a hairdresser, they'll be more than happy to help you choose a colour. So thanks for watching, and any questions leave below, and please subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.